What's up, everybody? Welcome to Water. My name is Tyler, and I'm your real-life remembrancer. Today is Thursday, which means we have the latest Horus Heresy reveal. As expected, it is the Imperial Fists Legion Praetor. Let's jump in and take a look here. I just want to give a quick overview of my thoughts and compare this a little bit to both my expectations and the Sons of Horus Praetor that we already saw released. So this is the model, if you haven't seen it yet, although you probably have. My initial reaction is that I love it. I think it's gorgeous. It's similar to my initial reaction of the Sons of Horus Praetor, which is, again, that I love it. It's gorgeous. It's, you know, an amazing sculpt, but there's something weird about both of them. Some inexplicable sort of details that just don't feel particularly 40K to me, or 30K, I guess, in this case. So let's talk about it a little bit here. So this is the main image that Games Workshop has posted. You can see he's got the Mark 6 beaky helm on, and then if we scroll down, we see the face that was in the actual cinematic trailer. So this guy, he's got a super cool face, by the way. I love his beard. It's super awesome. And then he's got this like half helmet with the crest here. And I don't know, that's kind of interesting. Like, I think they're maybe overdoing it on the crests a little bit. I don't know. This crest does not feel particularly Imperial Fist to me. Now, I'm not an Imperial Fist guy, so there could be, perfectly valid lore that backs this up that I'm unaware of, but I just wasn't expecting it. You know, when we saw him in the trailer, he didn't have this. I kind of I get it on the helmet, but having this like little half helmet thing with it, again, I think it looks super cool. Okay, it isn't that I don't like it. It's that I don't really understand why it's there. It just doesn't, I don't think it belongs. In the video, in the trailer, we saw that he had the eagle or the Aquila, whatever it actually was, kind of embossed in his forehead. And I thought that was a really neat feature. And other people had said, that that's not something they had seen before. They don't know if that should be there during the heresy, because it's more like a post-heresy thing. Ultimately, I just thought that was going to be like the core detail that makes this guy's head stand out, but you almost can't even tell. Like, your eye is completely drawn away from this unique feature by this giant plumage. So I'm not particularly sure about that. It's also kind of weird that it's like a crest, but then in the back it's like a ponytail. I don't know. I just get like more like White Scars vibes from that a little bit. So moving on from that, I want to talk about this sword. So I was talking to a friend about this, and we were comparing this to the sword that came out on Dominion's Zephon as well. And, I like the look. Again, first of all, like all things that I'm saying here, I love the way that it looks. I think it's a beautiful sculpt. I would happily use it as a bit in a kit bash or something like that. But it does look uniquely fantasy. I was quoted as saying, I compared it to something that you would see in World of Warcraft as opposed to Warhammer 40K. That's for a few reasons. One, the biggest reason is the holes. I think they look super sick, but they obviously don't contribute to any structural integrity. And in my mind, Space Marines have always been sort of brutally practical with their aesthetics. Everything that you see on a Space Marine, if you look elsewhere, is bulky, over armored. This Volkite weapon or whatever he's got here literally has like armor bolted onto the scope and armor bolted over the magazine, and these giant thick cables that pump energy and lubricant and all of that. You've got all of that kind of chunky, brutal, heavy, thick kind of aesthetic going on, and then you've got this like dainty little fancy sword with holes in it that could like bend if it's, you smack some armor with this and you might put a dent in it. So I don't know. I hope this isn't a trend. Okay, we've already seen two swords with holes in them kind of back to back. if they start just releasing every Praetor with a sword or every character with a sword with like holes in it, that's not great. Additionally, if you look at this hilt, again, it kind of just it's got fantasy vibes to me. It's very dainty and ornate. It does not feel particularly space marine-y to me. And then I don't know what's up with the whole gem thing. They're throwing gems around now. You can see we've got the gem back here as well. Now the circular gem is certainly more traditional. It's something that we've seen on lots of Space Marines. I don't particularly have any concerns about this, but this little rectangular gem, first of all, looks like a spirit stone, looks like an Eldar spirit stone. Don't know why it's there. Again, if there's a lore reason, there's all kinds of little things on Space Marine armor that have lore reasons behind them that you would never know unless you looked it up. So if this gem has a Space Marine lore reason, please let me know in the comments so that I'm more well informed. But ultimately, this looks like a sword from the fantasy elves, as far as I'm concerned. Certainly not a Space Marine. So I'm a little concerned about this whole general aesthetic that they're going for and how they're going to carry that forward. If we go back to the actual model, though, one other thing that I want to point out. So I noticed these molecular bonding studs on his shoulder pad. Now, for those unfamiliar, the molecular bonding studs came around during the Heresy, were mainly used on Mark V armor, although it can be seen and was used on earlier marks such as Mark II and Mark III. Essentially because most of the Mark IV armor went to the Traitor Legions during the Heresy, the Loyalist Legions found themselves wanting for additional armaments. And so what they found was that they could take these molecular bonding studs, which what I read according to the lore, they're basically rivets from like tanks, like rhinos and stuff, which kind of makes sense and is pretty cool. So you imagine these are just basically tank rivets bolting additional plates of armor. So this was something that Loyalists did on their Mark V armor and then obviously Mark II and Mark III in an attempt to bolster their defenses against the traitors, which had superior marks of armor in the form of Mark IV. Now, as the Heresy came to an end, the Mark VI armor that the Loyalist Legions eventually were able to obtain, they kept adding the molecular bonding studs to the left shoulder pad of the Corvus armor, the Mark VI armor, basically as a sign of their victories over the traitors thus far, and to sort of pay homage and pay respects to Mark V armor in general and the heroes who died fighting the traitors in the Heresy. So it's kind of just like a sign of respect, which is super cool. And one thing that I really like that they did here is that they've started adding in the small studs. You know, if you look at typical Mark VI armor, I think I have it here. I was looking at this guy. You know, typical Mark VI, all the studs are kind of the same size. It's still a cool look, but it's not quite as developed. Whereas you can see here, the small studs are thrown in, and I just think that's a nice little touch. I think it spruces it up. It kind of modernizes the aesthetic a little bit more, and so I definitely like that. But when I was reading up on the lore of the bonding stud, you can even see they're on his elbow pads here, which is super cool. When I was reading up on the lore, it got me curious. I started thinking, I never made a video on the Sons of Horus Praetor because I didn't have a YouTube channel at the time. And I was like, wait a minute. He has the bonding studs too. Why does he have the bonding studs here? Now, if you looked out at his legs, these do, unlike the Praetor here, where it's more of I believe, a symbol of homage and of respect. You can see he's got some bonding studs mixed in, but it's mostly on the shoulder pad. It's not on his legs or anywhere, which would mean it's not out of practicality, but rather out of respect. Whereas this guy has the bonding studs both on the shoulder pad, but on the legs as well, which is more of a practical look and is more reminiscent of Mark V armor. So I thought that was particularly interesting because, the traitors wouldn't want to show signs of respect towards the Loyalists. So it's like, does this Praetor come from earlier in the Heresy and the Imperial Fist Praetor comes from later in the Heresy? We obviously see them fight each other in the cinematic, So I'm just not particularly sure that I'm just not particularly sure everything's fully thought out or makes sense. If there's some good explanation as to why this guy looks the way that he does with the bonding studs, I would love to hear that down below, because as far as I'm concerned, he's wearing Mark 6. I believe it's not here, but we did see actually in the cinematic, you see this Praetor's Mark 6 helmet that he's wearing. It has the horizontal crest. And so if he's wearing Mark 6, why does he have the bonding studs? Because by the time of Mark 6, the bonding studs were mostly a loyalist kind of thing. And it's not to say that traders didn't have them. Of course traders had them. It was a practical, useful solution to a very real problem in the midst of a very real war. And so I'm not sitting here saying, oh, you can't have bonding studs on your traders. Obviously you can. It just seems, because these are Mark 6 and not earlier on in the Heresy, I'm like, why does this guy look like, a lot of these parts feel like they could just be slotted out with the parts on the Imperial fists. Like, you look at their shoulder pads, the heraldry around the trim, and like they're almost the same. So I don't know. They're almost the same, but then when you look at the rest of the stuff, like the Imperial fist armor and everything is completely different, right? So you can see that this Praetor has like extra gauntleting and everything like that. So it's not like that they're just giving them all the same armor, right? They're completely unique and different, but I don't know. This guy just doesn't make sense to me. I think he's cool. I like him. I think he'll work better, maybe even as like a loyalist. You've even got like this eagle here. It's not the Aquila. It's like two eagles looking at each other. I'll have to Google this and see what the significance of this is. But I mean, I don't know. It's not like skulls are something that loyalists don't use. This guy just, I don't know, kind of passes as a loyalist to me more than anything else. So anyway, back to the Imperial Fist guy. That's pretty much everything I have to say. Again, I think he looks super cool. There's just a couple things that are a little out of place and that I don't fully grasp. So again, if there are some explanations to some of this stuff that you are screaming at your monitor right now, like, how does this guy not know this? Please leave it down below. I would love to learn. I'm constantly trying to brush up on the details that I've missed in the past, and that's great. But yeah, overall, I think it's a very cool model. I like that the sword's like super high in the air and he's kind of like rallying his men. I like that even though they did include the hero rock, which they always do, and I hate, it's not as dumb as this one, right? This is a dumb look. Like he looks like he's stepping down, but he kind of like, how like when you are on the second to last stair and you think you're on the last stair, and so you step forward, but you end up falling 2 stairs down with your with your forward leg. That's what this guy looks like. Like he was walking on this rock and then he took a step to also step on this rock, but there was no rock there, and he kind of like fell, and now he's like catching himself and like trying to catch his balance. That's what it looks like to me. This is a terrible, terrible rock implementation. But this rock is better implemented and allows him to sort of get a little bit more height in his torso on the right side to really push that sword up into the air. So ultimately, I think it's pretty cool. I wish they had given us like a spin around thing where I could see his cape. I'm really interested to see what he looks like from behind. Obviously with Fafnir, when they released him, he had a lot of cool stuff on the back. So I definitely want to see what this cape looks like. It looks like it has some trim. So I want to see what that trim looks like. How ornate or detailed does that trim get? It has this little corner. So I'm wondering if maybe in the center of the cape, if there's like a bigger part of that white trim section that maybe goes up into like a point or some sort of shape. I think that would be really cool. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Hit that like button, and I will see you guys next time.